The Boeing 777X is shaping up to be one of the most advanced widebodies of our generation, but persistent delays to its entry into service have plagued what the aircraft is about. Now though, with an entry into service date slipping to 2025 and the manufacturer working towards final approval for the first entry to the series, we know there'll be two variants for passenger flying purposes. But does a third proposed variant, say the 777-10 or 777 Stretch, make sense? And very simply put, will it ever actually release? It's time to explore that very question, but be sure to subscribe. With over 70% of viewers not subscribed to the channel as I push for 40,000 here, it would be greatly appreciated. So to understand the 777-10 or 777X Stretch position within the Boeing lineup of aircraft, we must really also comprehend the current offerings. Boeing formally launched the 777X series with two variants, the 777-8 and the 777-9, sharing similar characteristics, but offering customers also a different opportunity with each. The Dash 9 aircraft has higher capacity, whereas the Dash 8 has less, but its range is substantially increased. This is a very common theme even with the original 777, where the 777-200LR was utilised for extremely long-haul routes. In contrast, acquiring, say, a 777-300 for customers, while definitely the ER harboured a range increase, it was a plane that was not only efficient as a twin engine, but came with additional capacity to meet, say, strong demand seen on those international services. What would the specifications indeed though be like if Boeing were to move forward with a third variant? The Dash 10 would be essentially a proposed stretch and see capacity increase towards 450 passengers, and if produced capacity-wise, could very quickly be the answer to some carriers' solid desires for a high-capacity aeroplane. Say, examining Emirates' situation, they're looking towards Airbus and the production of an A380 new engine option, or NEO, because the demand levels they're seeing paired with their business model does mean that a super jumbo type aircraft actually works for them. They're one of the few that can say that firmly. The reality is though that manufacturers are no longer proceeding with such a plane that Emirates and maybe later down the line other airlines want. They're more so prioritizing finding ways to become sustainable with future flight. Thus, yes, the 777-10 could be an answer if Emirates considered it necessary. And while being yes the answer also to maybe a gap left between the A380 and 747, you could argue it would additionally further compete with the A350-1000, really challenging this variant's position within the industry, and giving any customer after a specific aircraft such as this food for thought before making a formal decision. When pitching the question, would a 777-10 actually work, there has to be an understanding that even if such a variant is possible, many concepts do get floated around, but are never formally released and remain always just in the early stages of study before being abandoned and very quickly forgotten. I've covered many of these concepts here on the channel already, and don't worry, there'll be many more to come in the future, but it's always something to remember. The 777-10 was deemed feasible. Why? You may be asking I mentioned this. One of the most important things on the side of the 777-10 is it was deemed feasible through a fantastic report you can find by Flight Global from some time ago now. What does this mean though, you may be wondering? Well, under the current state of Boeing and how the program has been configured, Boeing believes it could extend the aircraft to produce a 777-10. It doesn't mean they will, but the technical feasibility being approved is a big thing when considering future decisions by the company. If such, say, a Dash 10 or Stretch wasn't possible or feasible to begin with, well then there wouldn't be really much further discussion. Maybe they'd find ways to make it feasible, but if their initial idea didn't work, the likelihood is it would have been permanently scrapped. While this publishing was now scarily 7 years ago, the industry is constantly changing, developing and more, and despite all of this, one of the biggest sticking points for the aircraft variant coming to fruition would be customer interest. You know that Boeing, or for that matter, any aircraft manufacturer, when studying a new plane, can't produce the said plane if customers are not interested. Otherwise, it would be a catastrophic failure for them. So who exactly would be interested? Well, you'd be looking directly at customers that would be needing a high-capacity stretch of the 777-9. Therefore, the Dash 9 would have to be in some sense deemed not suitable for what the specific customer is actually looking for at that moment. At this stage, that hasn't been the case. While Emirates looks around for a plane that say, can replace its A380, and their sights are very much set on an A380neo despite the continued pushback from the European plane maker, and the very much likelihood that won't be happening. There's discussion on a 777-10 that always comes back to really only one customer at this point, and that is that Dubai-based airline, whose business model could suit a stretch, but other than that, a key reason why we haven't seen the variant yet is, aside from the Dubai-based airline, you'll notice I didn't mention any other airlines. That's because there isn't enough firm interest to make it worth Boeing's while, especially when you factor in that there are already delays persisting with the existing variants. They're yet to see the 777-9 fly with customers, and they still haven't produced the Dash 8 and the Dash 8F, so there's a lot of established workings that need to be figured out. We've seen this happen time and time again, and an analogy I will give you is the A380 series. There were struggles getting the A380 production up and running and to a rate that the plane maker thought was suitable, and as a result, there was a casualty from that, the A380 freighter. So could a 777-10 though compete with the A350 and be a driving force for the future? A 777-10 release, if at all, would have to come, you need to think about it, after all currently existing variants obtain their relevant certification. So if released, it would actually be closer to 15 to 20 years after introduction of the first Airbus A350-1000. And at this point, we're almost entering, I'd argue, a new era for aviation, where some other form of technology, aircraft or opportunity will arise. We're already seeing that with movement from the American and European plane makers, and it may very well change the trajectory of how aircraft are built. It's very valid, and understanding also what Airbus will be doing in the same time frame is another consideration that must be made. There's no point releasing a 777-10 if there's something totally better that they can be producing to either compete with Airbus or outclass them. So, will it release? It's too hard to predict the future and say yes or no, but what we do know when we consider a final answer, maybe later down the line, is the plane is technically feasible, but it would need customers interested. Additionally, Boeing has priorities elsewhere, like its established 777X variants, which are battling certification delays. So therefore, if the 777X had entered service in 2020, maybe there wasn't also a pandemic, things would be different. But again, that's just me saying the ifs, buts, maybes, and alternative realities. Time will tell, but understanding what could prevent a launch is equally essential when coming to a formal decision. What are your thoughts on a 777-10? Do you believe it seamlessly fits into the Boeing portfolio of aircraft? Or are you under the impression Boeing should focus on the Dash 8 and the Dash 10 for future flying purposes? Let me know down below in the comments. Thanks a lot for your support, take care and be safe, and I'll see you next time.
And we'll fly.